need some help. What are your wages?
I'll help my my fees.
Your fees, yeah.
We can talk about that later.
Okay, fair enough. But I think we're probably good to get started if you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to Articulate. Today we have one Miss Kelsey McKee. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah. Not been better before, but that's what we're here to talk about, right? We're here to talk about emotions because you are starting a podcast, right?
I'm starting a podcast.
Okay. Give us the rundown.
I'm still ironing out the kinks of the rundown myself, but it's basically I was just thinking about how like I'm just such an emotional bitch, and it kind of is like I feel like the theme of like my life and my thoughts. So I originally wanted to start a podcast about I started this event series in like late 2019. And it was all about like it was called the Self series. It was all about talking about feelings and
What's
like
an event series?
it was basically just like a 6-part event series. So 6 events, all meant to be in person.
Okay.
The first one was a self-love panel. Like it was 3 panels, 3 workshops. So the first one was a self-love panel. Second one was a self-reflection workshop that we had a dance studio.
Did you do this through like a school or like through?
No,
you just made it.
Yeah, I just made it.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, because I was at the time. Every time I'm going through like a really, really deep, dark pit.
Yeah.
I make something like this.
Yeah, a trough.
Yeah. So I was just really going through it.
That's kind of a good coping mechanism. You just become extremely productive when you're super low.
Yeah, I guess. But the more I suffer, like the more I like create good things. But
it's definitely good. Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like really suffering in my personal life, and I just
was it due to something in specific or just like
I think something set it off.
Okay.
A man.
As it usually goes, yeah. A counterpart.
And I could not get out of like funk isn't a strong enough word, but for at least 6, maybe it went on for 9 months. I was just like very, very, very low.
Yeah.
And it was really all I could think about was just like how sad I was and how like emotional I was. And
it's the thought spiral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember I've never gotten my shit together more than when I was in that spiral and funk because it was just like my main focus. It's like what a mess I was.
It really forces you to like think about it, you know?
Yeah. Just what a mess I was and like how like I could not have fun. Like I felt like I didn't want to see anybody because I didn't want to be like a burden or a downer when everyone's trying to have fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I talked a lot about this in the event series, but I kind of came to a realization like, okay, why I'm really, really sad. I'm like the thing that's making me the most sad is that I feel like lonely.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about like, why don't I like being alone?
Oh yeah. Totally.
Oh, because I don't like myself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I don't like being alone because I don't like myself. And then just thinking about like why is my bank account always so low? Why is my room always such a mess? Oh, I don't respect myself.
Yeah.
So just trying to figure out like, okay, now that we know what the like root of the issue is, how do I like mend that?
Right.
So I just got really, really strict with myself about like making sure I spend at least 15 minutes a night, like making sure my room is clean before I go to sleep and just taking care of future me.
Yeah.
Which I really was not doing before that. But yeah, all of that.
Was that in the event series? So did you like hire people to come talk and like, or did you just give presentations? Or?
Yeah, well, so like all of that like inspired me to do that. And another reason for why I started it was I was trying to leave my job at the time.
Right.
And I was realized that I didn't really have like a solid portfolio.
Mm.
Like the stuff that I was doing at my job, I didn't really feel like was like impressive enough to get the jobs that I wanted. So um, I kind of like concepted these 3 like imaginary brands that I would like build out like a brand for and make like a little like mock-up social media presence for, just to have in my portfolio.
Right. You make your own.
Yeah.
It's like having a reel, but it's just you just completely forged the entire reel, like of all the clips. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like every time like I've gotten as far as I have, because like if something doesn't exist already, I just make that
Fake it till
opportunity
you make it, baby.
for myself. Yeah. But so this was one of the brands that I made because I wanted to one of the brands to be a beauty brand for your mind.
Oh,
that's
cool.
how that like started, the
Yeah.
concept. And then it just as I worked more on it, I was like, wait, I want to like do this.
Yeah.
So I started out with the 3 panels, 3 workshops. I just asked like friends to be on the panels, and I had some co-hosts for like the workshops and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did like the self-love panel, self-reflection workshop, self-discovery panel, where I had like 10 artists and entrepreneurs and just like people I knew that I thought were really cool. We had that at an art gallery, and then we had like a drink and draw after. The 4th one was self-acceptance workshop, and I I flew my friend out from LA to be on the panel. It was just me and her like talking.
Yeah.
But she had like a crazy following, and she talks all about like her eating disorder, and she's like built up a big fan base based on like talking about self-acceptance. So and then the 5th event was March 17th, 2020.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
So that did not happen.
Oh, wow.
But it was going to be like it was about self improvement, and it was going to be like an intimate little like dinner at this like hair salon that I worked at the time.
Dinner at a hair salon. I don't know if that sounds like a good combination.
No, okay, so it's a very conceptual hair salon. They have a little shop in the front with like seating and stuff. So it would have been nice.
Okay, all right, yeah. I'll take your word for it.
And then the last event was supposed to be a self-care workshop, and it was going to be like an overnight thing at this place called The Deacon.
Yeah.
Do you know The Deacon?
I've heard of it, but I don't remember anything about it, if I'm being honest.
It's like it was a church that they were going to knock down, and then these people bought it and turned it into this like really cool event space Airbnb thing. So it was going to be like an overnight.
You put so much work into this.
I did.
Have you ever considered that you put on this event to run from your emotions?
To run from them?
Yeah. Or distract yourself from them.
It was a good distraction, but it was a very healthy and constructive distraction.
It's weird because it's like a little bit of like distraction, but also very like obviously self-aware and like working on emotions and stuff.
I think it was like a very productive distraction because I was distracted by like how well it was going and how well it was received and like the like good feelings from that.
Right.
But then I was also talking all about everything that I was going through and talking to other people about like similar things that they were going through in a room full of people that just wanted to talk about that. So it just felt good, and it helped get me out of what I was trying to get out of.
Well, that's good. And then COVID hit, and then it just threw you right back in, right?
I loved COVID.
Really? You had a good COVID. Nice. Me too, actually.
But why did you have a good COVID?
Well, because, I think the first part of it was really bad. But for a lot of the reasons that you were kind of talking about, like it kind of knocked me down to a point where I was like super, super low and like alone and stuff like that. And then I had to like I had to find tools because it was the most prevalent thing in my brain. It's like, all right, I need tools to like help me out of this. You know what I mean? So like waking up, I hate running, but like I would wake up and go for like a 10-minute run, like to just like get me out of my.
That's more than I can do.
Yeah. I mean, I started like running. I started journaling every day. You know, actually like actively got into meditating, and like I had time for it. You know what I mean? And it like really, while it didn't necessarily get me out of the trough, you know what I mean? It it definitely helped me feel like I was actively working on it. So that way, it was, 2 years later until I feel like I really got out of it.
Yeah.
But once I did, I was, like, very grateful to have those tools in my back pocket so, like, I had maybe, like, a year of happiness, like, recently, which is, like, the longest that I've had.
Yeah.
But then I started feeling kinda down again. I was like, "Okay, let me pick up these tools again and, like, remember to get back into these things that I know actively make me feel better and healthier," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I started going to therapy for the first time when I was 23 or 24.
And how does that
Um,
make you feel?
it made me feel great. And
Yeah.
like it's something that I've wanted for so long, but I couldn't afford, and then I got health insurance and I
Right?
was
Isn't that
like,
crazy?
it's over for these bitches. But I started working with a therapist that I really loved, and I feel like he was just like the best match for me. And
Nice.
I saw him for 3 years consistently. I made so much progress with him, and I think just like feeling like I was making progress was good enough to keep me afloat happiness wise.
Yeah, totally.
Like when I feel like I'm not making progress or I'm regressing, that's when I really get deep down in it.
Yeah. But
Um
part of that also is just, like, beating yourself up because you have to
yeah,
allow yourself to fall sometimes, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, and maybe it's like a some kind of perfectionism or overachiever thing, like
Yeah.
feeling like you constantly need to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, productivity is just, like, forced upon like, thrust upon us as, like, a society that we need to continue to be productive through everything
Yeah.
all of the time. So then even when you're down and you feel sad, you feel even sadder because you're not being productive. Like, I was sick the past week and, like, bedridden, and I just watched, like, 3 movies a day, and I was just like, "Man," and,
Yeah,
like
you feel like shit
yeah.
after because you watched movies and didn't do
But I
anything.
needed to do that, and it's like, it
Yeah.
was productive for my body and for my health, but, like,
Yeah.
mentally, I was like, "Fuck," like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like something that cuz I after I had stopped seeing my therapist because of like I got off my stepdad's health insurance, so I couldn't see him anymore.
Mhm.
I took a real big dip
Really.
mental health wise because I just felt like I had made all this progress. And without him, it felt like kind of like, what's the word? Like no like guardrails, I guess.
Oh, yeah, like bumpy
Um,
roads.
y-
So, do you feel you were kinda dependent on therapy then?
I really just think it was like the feeling of like security, knowing that
Yeah.
like if I have an issue, I have someone to talk to it
Yeah, that's fair.
uh about it. But yeah, I think like after I felt like I had made all this progress, I still felt like I was having like like interpersonal conflicts that like didn't really feel like they had changed, but like I've reflected on that recently, and I know that like I handled those conflicts so much better than I would have before I
Before.
started therapy.
Right.
But I just felt I was very resentful for a long time because I felt like no matter how much work I do on myself, like I don't have any control over if other people want to act a fool or not. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
and yeah, I remember I like had like a big falling out with like a very important person in my life, and that really like affected me pretty bad, and I was
Mhm.
like feeling very resentful that like, oh my god, like I know that I did everything like to the best of my ability. I used all my tools.
Right.
I know that I feel good about the way that I handled this, but I'm still so frustrated that like she was like someone that like not didn't believe in therapy, but just like hadn't done that same
The work,
work.
right.
And I was just like, fuck it. I like what am I doing this for? Like if I can't like
If you can't control your emotions all the
yeah.
time.
Yeah. Other people's emotions.
Yeah.
And then I I thought about that and I was like, okay, Kelsey, like,
Yeah,
this is not healthy thinking. No,
right.
we cannot control other people. And if you feel good about the way you handled a situation, then that's really, you have to like be okay with that.
Yeah, like if you did the work and it still didn't turn out for it, at least you did the work. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not like you have regrets about how you handled it or anything. And so like if there was nothing else you could do, then you know what I mean? Then like you did the best thing possible. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that you definitely have to come to terms with. I did do like a little research and I did I heard this thing that was interesting about how like emotions are just basically guesses, like predictions,
Mm.
because it's all based on like past experiences. And so it's like you're basically just trying to like when you see somebody's emotion, you're just trying to like overlay that with something you've already seen and like kind of already experienced. So part of your own interior emotions are highly based on how you're reading other people's emotions,
Yeah.
which is like crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I like, and I always try to check myself, like, um, am I taking this thing that someone said or the way that someone, like, someone's demeanor towards me as, like, is the way I'm perceiving that based on my relationship with my mom or like
Yeah. Yeah,
an
something way deeper, you know?
yeah, an experience that I had with a friend that didn't go well or whatever. Yeah, I think about that a lot.
So when you had this moment where you feel like you all this work was, for naught, how did you deal with that? How did you cope?
I put my big girl pants on and I was like, okay, like, no, we're not going to be able to control how other people handle the situation. I'm going to run into people that don't value this work as much as I do and don't participate in the, and maybe sometimes don't even need the work and I'm
Yeah.
resentful of that.
Yeah, jealous.
Yeah,
Isn't it
yeah.
crazy? Some people just live their life and are happy. Isn't
I
that wild?
can't I can't comprehend.
Yeah.
But no, I struggled with that for a hot minute, but I really just told myself like, okay, you've come so far and you should be proud of that. And when you handle a situation to the best of your ability and you feel good about it, you feel like you left a situation, you were respectful and you were kind and you were compassionate and you tried to put yourself in their shoes, like that's really all you can do and you got to be happy with that and leave it.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And and then you can kind of monitor your reaction from there. And like I think part of just even like emotional work is really just self-awareness, like really just watching the emotions come because a lot of times you can't control them. And so just being
Yeah.
able to recognize the patterns and like the things that happen when you feel a certain way, you're like, okay, I'm feeling this now. And as opposed to like just reacting, it's like being like taking a step back and being like, okay, I've seen how what's this has done to me before and
Yeah.
really trying to like circumvent, the whole, like getting angry, like punching a hole in the wall and then calming down, just going straight to calming down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't I get angry. I don't get angry to the point of physical violence,
Right.
but
Yeah. I mean, that was an extreme example for sure.
but I really just I think I just get really sad.
You just get really sad.
Sad to the point of like it's self-destructive, I guess.
Yeah. Sadness is an interesting one because I was also, I mean, I've been in therapy like twice now. And the second time they taught a lot about just like basically what emotions are useful for, you know what I mean? And like how you can acknowledge like sadness is used to process, you know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
if you really need to do that, then for sure. But like at some point, you got to step out of that comfort of like nurture and really, because it's just going to build and build and build to the
Yeah.
point where it's just debilitating, you know?
Yeah. Well, okay, first of all, I just want to say I would rather be an emotional mess than an emotionless robot.
Yeah, that's fair.
I if I had to choose between the two, I'd choose
Yeah.
the first one.
Yeah.
But my
Just real quick, it's kind of like the idea of like experiencing a relationship is like you could just like not go through a relationship, but like
yeah.
that's the fun part of life. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My therapist that I was seeing for 3 years, he said something to me that like was really, really helpful when I was in my like deep, dark, juicy depression. He was like, it's okay to be sad, and if you like want to try and think of it as like your sadness is like a toddler.
Mm,
And what happens when a toddler like bumps his head and starts crying, like you let him cry, of course. You don't immediately try to shush him or like tell him like no, that's not what you do.
yeah.
You let him cry, but after a certain point you go over and you're like, okay, like you want to go get some ice cream,
Yeah.
like you can let yourself be sad, but when it starts to get to a point that is not helpful,
Hmm.
um, ask yourself if you want to go get some ice cream or something.
Yeah.
That's how I like. Sometimes I forget about that, and I am sad to the point of self-destruction. But for the most part, I think that's how I get myself out of my
Yeah.
sadnesses.
Well, it's so crazy because sadness is just so like powerful as an emotion. You know what I mean? Like joy is not nearly as powerful as sadness. You know what I mean? Like I feel like so I told you like I had like a big like what do we call it? Funk or depression is really what
Spiral funk.
spiral whatever.
Yeah.
And then I like got out of it for like a year, and by the end of it when I started feeling emotion again, it was almost like wow, I just haven't been like, like I've been happy and like content, but I haven't been like acknowledging anything going on inside of me for so long. You know what I mean? That it felt
Yeah.
like I was losing some of my depth. And so, like,
Mm.
honestly, at this point, like, since it's been back, I've been able to appreciate sadness a little bit more for like the idea that it makes me think about things a little bit deeper than just kind of surface level
Mm.
and really, trying to, like you said, not letting it debilitate me, but just like understanding what it's useful for.
Yeah, I think sadness is good if it's useful, if it helps you like unbox something that you needed to, or come to some revelation that you
Yeah.
needed to. I used to live in LA. I moved there for college,
Okay.
and I lived there for 4 years. And I just felt like my life there was so exciting and
Yeah.
so like I feel like this might sound corny, but every day was an adventure.
Right.
Like
It was very new.
every day, and that's something that like okay, I there's probably more reasons than this, but I have ADHD, so I really, really thrive on newness. I get bored very easily.
Yeah.
So when every day feels new, and like every day I was meeting new people and I was going new places and I was seeing new things and I was doing new things, and that stimulation I feel was like very good for me. It kept me feeling very happy.
Yeah.
Even when I was sad, like I was never like that
Yeah.
sad, I guess. And when I moved to Philly, I was like, I'm here for a year tops. Like I do
Yeah.
not want to be here more than that. This is boring.
Oh
And
man.
um but I think like through talking to my therapist and like reflection and stuff, LA in reality was very chaotic and
Yeah.
very like my life
Unpredictable.
my life there was very unstable. It was not like responsible. And in Philly I've been here for 5 or 6 years now.
Oh, way longer than intended.
Way longer than a year.
Yeah.
But I think after a little bit I realized like, oh, stability is good for you, and
Yeah.
it's not it was always something that like terrified me
Right.
because I was terrified of feeling like
Stuck in the low, right?
stuck and bored and
Yeah.
my life becoming mundane.
Yeah.
But Yeah.
No, I feel that because I'm from Ohio, right?
Mhm.
So like, there's not a lot to do, or like not a lot of stimulation, external stimulation in Ohio.
Mhm.
So it really made me just like cope with like being in a stable place, and I would make distractions, or I would try to make new
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
But that's kind of one of the reasons why I started meditating, because a lot of meditation is realizing that the present moment is always new. So even though I'd wake up in the same house at the same time, day after day, I'd be like, okay, well, it's now, like June 16th or whatever at this time at, 2022. This has never happened before. You
Yeah,
know what I
this is a
mean?
new
Like,
day.
yeah, like really trying to like instill that every moment is new. And I think that work really helps. So when I came out to Philly, like I said, I mean, I had to go through a little bit of adjustment, but then, you know, once I got back to that sort of, oh, it's getting kind of like day in and day out again. It's like, oh, well,
Mhm.
I've already worked on this before. I remember how to kind of like work on this.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird how like a lot of people think like I want to avoid this thought because if I think about it too much it'll make me sad or whatever, but like um with meditation, like the deeper you think about if you get over that hill,
Right.
like it's a good thing and it
Yeah,
helps.
totally. Where with chaos is like, it's going to keep you just on the hill at all different, like different
Yeah,
angles.
yeah, yeah.
So like stability, I think, I think you can start working uphill after you go through like the initial processing.
Yeah.
Whereas with chaos, you're just thrown all in different angles.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think well, okay. Yay.
Yeah.
I can say why I loved COVID now.
Mhm.
I think that I think that I was just so used to unpredictability, so used to chaos, so used to like trauma that when COVID happened, it kind of felt like the basement's on fire and everyone's running around and I'm like, this is nice.
Yeah.
Like this feels familiar. This feels
Yeah.
like home.
Wow.
And I think that like that's not why I loved it. Like that's why I didn't care that it was happening too
Right,
much.
because it didn't change
It
your
did
mental state, really. You were already,
no.
like, down there.
I was like, oh, this I've been here before. Let's do
Yeah.
this. Obviously no one's been through COVID before, but I've been through like equivalents, I would say. But I think I loved COVID because one of the things that like affects my mood the most has the like can have the biggest negative impact on my mood is FOMO.
Oh, yeah.
Just feeling left
Definitely.
out and I have a lot of reasons for that, but
Mhm.
when COVID happened, I was like, nobody's doing anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm not missing out on anything.
I know for sure I'm not missing out on shit because
Yeah.
everyone is at home doing nothing.
Right.
And that felt so not good, but like
A weight
calming
off of your shoulder a
to
little
me.
bit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One less thing to worry about.
A big thing. I feel like
Yeah.
like feeling left out and like feelings of abandonment is like just always there in the back of my mind. So
Yeah, I think that's for a lot of people, too. Yeah.
when COVID happened, I was like, I can let that shit go.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, I can like think about there are other things to think about.
Yeah.
So that just felt
Freeing.
good.
Yeah, it sounds like
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. And then, obviously, that gives you an opportunity to think on other things and work through other things as well.
Yeah.
So, like, when, say, FOMO comes back, it's like, well, at least I figured some other shit out and I can really, you have those practices in your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. It freed so much space in my mind. I like started a business over COVID. I have
Oh,
like an
wow.
LLC and stuff.
Nice.
My like web design business and I tried to build it into something more. And then I realized that I don't have the funds for that.
Yeah. Not yet.
Not yet, but I thought I had enough, but you really need such a shit ton of money to
Really.
make your own
Business, a bit like a real legitimate
yeah,
business.
or money or time. And I had the time for a while and then
Right.
it ran out.
Right.
So I had to get a job. But
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, like now, I mean, you've obviously, I don't know if you recently started stand up or if you recently started around Philly
I started in December.
in December. Okay. So like do you find now like you're still doing a lot of work? Do you feel like you've gotten to a place that you're able to, kind of maneuver and you think you're comfortable with what you're doing for a while or
I think that, and this is not good, but I think that I've replaced doing the work with stand up.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had gotten a new therapist and she was good. She was no Paul, but she was good. And
Nobody could ever be like Paul.
no one could ever replace Paul. Her name was
Right.
Paula, but
What? Crazy.
um, she I was seeing her for a while and then I quit my job and I got off my health insurance, so couldn't see her anymore. And around the same time, I started doing stand up. So
Yeah.
it kind of felt like I was replacing
Yeah.
therapy with stand up,
Just
which is
terrible.
a terrible.
Stand up
No,
is just full of insecurity and
I should go.
self doubt.
I should go straight to jail.
Yeah.
But it when I there was an overlap and I told her that I was starting stand up and she asked me to read her like my
Oh
first
no.
thing that I had written.
Yeah.
Oh, she was laughing hysterically and I was like, there's so much going on here. Like I'm telling jokes about my mom being a stripper to my therapist and she's laughing her ass off and this just feels wrong but amazing.
Yeah.
But
Exciting. New.
yeah, I think there's like definitely a big high when I first started.
Yeah, I remember you telling those jokes at 2 Street. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Worked pretty well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I got a good start and it's been like this a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, yeah. It comes in waves, I think,
yeah.
for sure.
I know if I stick with it, I'll get better. I was telling someone the other night, like, oh, well, Chris Rock said that when he first started, he was amazing. And then, like, a few weeks in, like, he just sucked for 3 years and then he
Yeah.
got really good. And I was like, if I have the same trajectory as Chris Rock, then
Yeah.
getting way ahead of myself.
Right.
But
Yeah, you're comparing yourself to Chris Rock already. All right. Take a chill pill here, all right? Slow your roll. All right.
But yeah, I don't know.
Hope Chris Rock watches. He's like, like this.
Chris Rock will never watch this.
Yeah, no, never.
But no, I think even still, like we can make jokes and everything about how stand up is unhealthy and whatever, but I really do think in a different way it's been very healing for me to talk about things that I just have like a lot of things that have happened in my life that like I think they're funny. Like they're not at all. They're very traumatic
Yeah.
and they're very sad and like to a normal person it's like very concerning.
Yeah.
But I've just gotten to a point and I've developed this sense of humor where I can just like find the humor in all of it and I like will try to like tell normal people these stories and they're just like do you want to go lay down like
Yeah.
and to be able to tell a room full of people these things in like an intentionally funny format and they know it's intended to be funny
fun, yeah.
and they laugh like that feels good.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's a good way of processing, like especially again, like I think there's at some point where you've dealt with the, trauma so much or whatever that like at some point it's like you've kind of worked through it and then you're able to look at it and be like, all right, well that was like silly.
Yeah.
That was silly that I like did all that,
I'll cry about it when I'm alone, but when I'm
Right.
around other people I want you to laugh with me.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well that's awesome. So you feel like you're in at least this is like new for now, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's also like when I feel like I'm not being I have my own qualms with like not feeling productive, but I think that not feeling like I'm doing creative things
Yeah.
is a separate like struggle and
That's
separate
often
bad
with
feeling.
like creative people. I think everybody needs to fulfill that need somehow, and if you're not doing it, then you feel like you're not growing or like living or like moving on.
Yeah, I feel like a waste of space, but
Yeah.
I feel like stand up and just like coming up with like different premises and like building them out, like that's really feeding my creative
Yeah.
stomach.
Desire. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's funny though. That's kind of what helped me, and then at some point I like just wasn't able to like write anymore, so then I was just going up on stage and it just felt empty.
Yeah.
So then I had to like
Yeah.
change some things
And
in my
everyone can
life.
tell. Everyone can
Yeah,
tell you
everybody
don't have
knows.
shit.
Yeah. So yeah, then you have to like work on other things within it. But yeah, no, that's cool that you've like been able to work on this. It seems like it's a very like important thing to you. Are you throwing any more events? Are you planning any event series?
Well, I started my house show.
Your house show.
Which
Oh yeah. How's that going?
it's going good. It's a little nerve-wracking. I feel like we like sold more tickets than we had available for the first show.
Oh wow.
Just because of like it was new and exciting, and all my friends were like, "Oh my god, this is so cool! Like, we'll come support you, but only once." So
Yeah.
and I don't expect everyone to come to every single thing, but like the last show, I think we had like 15 people come. This show, I'm a little bit nervous. I think we've sold like 8 tickets.
Oh, wow.
And when it's at your house, it's not like a bar where like if there are people eating downstairs and they're like, "Oh, a comedy show upstairs, I'll just go up." And not having it at your house is another like obstacle for people to want to buy tickets. So I'm hoping it's like a summer thing.
Sure.
That's like affecting it a little bit. But I'm definitely gonna keep doing it regardless.
Yeah. I mean, it's also just good experience, like with stand up and like learning to host and throwing on shows and stuff like that as well. Kind of building out your portfolio a little bit more in that sense too.
Yeah, if anything, it's like good to just have like to show people that I do and did. It's good practice.
Right. Definitely. And then now you're also starting the podcast too, which is like another coping thing, but also another way to, to feel like you're doing something and processing more.
Yeah, I think I have like I think I'm doing like an underlying like deeper reason that I'm doing all this too is like if I'm not doing things like this, like a podcast that anyone can see or listen to and stand up where like people can see that I'm doing that. I'm terrified that everyone will forget that I ever exist, and no one will ever be like, "I wonder where Kelsey is. Let's like go hang out with her."
Yeah, totally.
I have that big fear.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel. If I ever die, it's like, well, you could just listen to all these podcasts and then feel like you're hanging out with me. I actually want to create an AI, so when I die, it's just like my voice asking questions to people.
I don't give a fuck if people remember me after I die
Okay.
because
Yeah,
I won't
fair.
know. Like, I'll be dead.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't believe that anything happens after you die, so when I'm dead, I'm dead. Cool, whatever.
Yeah. Throw me in the trash.
Throw me in the backyard and prop me up on the lawn chair. But I do care about the way that I feel while I'm here.
Sure.
So
yeah, you gotta enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
And have fun with it. So it sounds like you're at least trying to enjoy it, right?
I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I mean, I'm glad that you're working on it, and it sounds like you've done a lot of work, and you will continue to do work if anything else happens. Hopefully.
Yes.
But I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. Kelsey, follow her on Instagram at. You spelled your name different in your @name than your actual name.
Oh yeah, I wanted to point out. Thank you so much for spelling my name right because no one ever does. Kelsey McKee was taken, so it's
yeah. So it's KelseeMckee on Instagram.
Yes.
And you're starting a podcast, which you should look out for. What's it called?
It's called Why Are We Crying?
Why Are We Crying? And people just come on and talk about their sadness.
Well, their emotions, whether they're good or bad, just anything that makes you feel an intense emotion.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I should come on that.
You can. You
Please. Please get me on. I need to know.
I'll have you on.
Awesome, thanks. But yeah, thanks for coming out, and I think it was a good conversation. And yeah, that's a wrap. Let's